Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October workshop meeting for Carlisle Borough Council. We'll start things off with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First item up, citizens to be heard. I do not think there's anyone scheduled to be heard this evening, so we'll go ahead and just, if anyone who is joining us this evening would like to address council on a matter of borough government, you may do so now. Your mic will be unmuted. All right, well, hearing none, we'll move on.
Wait, Virginia Malk is here and she's gonna come and make a statement.
Okay, Virginia, you have the floor.
Yep.
All right, I just have, I know some of you know we had a very important visitor a couple weeks ago. And while we were walking down the street, we had a little accident. There was some dog poop on the sidewalk. And I just wondered if that issue has ever been addressed before council. If there's anything we can do about dog waste on the sidewalks, if there's something, you know, an initiative we could do, maybe put up bag stations that maybe people would pick up the waste. I mean, I don't know if people that leave the dog poop on the sidewalk, I don't think maybe you're going to pick it up anyhow, but maybe if they would see a bag, if this was something that we could do. So yeah, we were walking down the street and we were having a nice conversation and a great visit around town, and all of a sudden, boom, the foot went right in it. So that was a question I had. I just didn't know if that was on your radar, or if it was something you could do.
I live downtown, so I see it from time to time. As far as an initiative goes, I'm not aware of anything that's in the works. That might be something that DCA can look at in working with staff. So I encourage you to pursue both of those avenues. Does anyone else have any suggestions?
Only that it happens outside of downtown too.
Yes, it does. But I do happen to see it. So yeah, very good point, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Okay, all right. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard on this or any other topic?
There is no one else.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on to outside agencies, I'll turn things over to our esteemed Deputy Mayor and Finance Chair, Mr. Sean Schultz.
Okay, so this is the opportunity for all the outside agencies who are seeking grants from the borough to come forward and provide their presentations. I don't have the advantage of seeing who may be at Borough Hall, so I'll pass it off to, who do we have over at Borough Hall? Stephanie, you're there. Can you help me out?
They're all on the Zoom meeting, I believe, for the outside agencies. There's no one here for outside agencies, so we have Jeff Swope with the library up first, I believe.
Okay. Okay, we'll have them step to the podium.
In the meeting.
It's your meeting, Stephanie.
So Jeff, you're unmuted. So whenever you're ready.
Very good. Thank you very much. This is surreal, but it's nice to see all your faces. So thank you for taking the time to let us all speak tonight, and thank you for making these funds available to all of us, because this in particular has been a very challenging year. I was very pleased to be able to send you a proposal. Our proposal is a project, is the library itself. There's so much that you already know about Bosler. It seems redundant for me to go into our history, but now more than ever, the opportunity for people to access fair and equitable and accurate information is more critical right now in our world than ever before. During the pandemic, we were battered but not broken. The state did shut us down for a number of weeks. When we were able to reopen, we reopened with curbside service. which we did as a mitigating factor for some of our distancing and our mandates from the state. But it's a service we're going to continue as an opportunity for people as a convenience into the future. We were able to pivot to virtual programming, which we've been building and actually continue to plan to incorporate into the future, even when we can meet in person again in the library. So our collections, our services, and our programs, there are just so many to mention, and they're so vital to so many that I think for the time that we have to share, what I would really most like was to know what you would like to know from me about what we do every day.
Are there any questions from members of council?
Jeff, what do you think has been the biggest shift in your operations, other than obviously having to work virtually for a while, but now that have people coming back into the library, what's your biggest issue that you're grappling with?
Well, there are a couple, I guess, and they sort of all fall under the pandemic. Certainly we've had to significantly ramp up our protocols for cleaning and sanitizing. So that's been an extra piece of what we do. But again, lessons learned, we do actually think that some of those protocols will be things that we continue into the future, maybe not at the same level, but that some of those will continue into the future. I'm blessed to say that while we've had more than our fair share of mask issues, we have not had some of what you would have seen in the media as the most dramatic of mask issues. But we do deal to some degree with that. I suspect that everyone does who is open to the public. And then I think just the overall anxiety of the time and the toll that takes on your staff, and how you best manage that so that they feel comfortable, or as comfortable as you can in a time like this. So there are a couple different challenges, but I would say they really all sort of fall under the umbrella of dealing with the pandemic and these really kind of unprecedented times and how we address things in our facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions from any other members of council?
Yep, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Jeff, I just had two potentially, hopefully, quick questions. The first is, did you all receive any state funding, or do you anticipate any state funding coming through this year?
Do you mean through the state budget itself?
Correct, yes.
Right now, public libraries in Pennsylvania, the Office of Commonwealth Libraries, is in a similar position that a large number of folks across the state are. We have been approved for a 5/12 budget, and will not know until the budget is revisited and passed in November what the remainder of that will look like. So obviously a 5/12 funding could be catastrophic.
All right, thank you for that. And then my last question, have you seen any silver lining with regard to COVID and how you operate that something that worked well that you think can carry on into the future? You mentioned curbside. Is that something you think folks like and that you might want to keep?
It's very difficult for me to say that there's a silver lining to the pandemic, but I know exactly what you are asking, and I know exactly what kind of things you're looking for. Yes, curbside is something that we feel our public will look to enjoying well beyond the pandemic. I think that some of the virtual programming we talk so much about physical outreach, but virtual programming is a form of outreach as well. As I had mentioned, some of the cleaning and sanitizing of our facility are things for our public safety into the future we're looking at. So I think there are some things. I think there are some things we see now. And I think there are some things we may see after we kind of transition back into a more normal environment and say, wow, we really don't want to lose that now that we're back in this more normal environment. So yes, I think there are some things from an infrastructure and from a provision of service that we may take from these times.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
Just a comment. I'll just say that I saw one of your virtual programs today for kids for Spanish, and my daughter, who took her own initiative during the pandemic to learn Spanish through Duolingo, really appreciated it. So I see how those little tiny bits that don't, maybe it didn't take that long to record. I think it does resonate with the community, and as people start learning that those things exist, it allows, especially right now with, the 2 days a week here in Carlisle on schools. I mean, little bits that can help support the school district in maybe peripheral ways are also really helpful. And I think, getting the word out about that is going to be really helpful in partnering. So thank you for that.
I deeply appreciate hearing that. It's always nice to hear those things. So thank you.
Okay, any other questions from council? Okay. All right, thanks. And we are trying to keep all the, we have a number of presentations, trying to keep them to about 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Next on my list is Calc. I see Becky. I see Becky's here with us.
I am here. How are you? Can you see me? This is a very unique situation here. So,
we hear you, Becky.
okay, you hear me. Yes, thank you very much for having me. Now it's asking me to start my video. I don't know what's happening.
There you go.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for having me, for having all of us today. This is a really special thing that council and the borough does for our community and our nonprofits. I will keep it short because I know that a lot of you are very familiar with Carlisle Arts Learning Center. Our mission is to inspire individual growth and community engagement through the arts. And the proposal that I sent in is for our Artworks After School program, which really speaks to both those pieces. The individual growth of our middle school students. This year it's middle school and high school. Because of the pandemic, we expanded it. And it's each group, the middle school one day and the high school group is meeting a second day. And they are hoping to work on a community-based project to engage every community member. They've done some of these projects in the past where they've put in a large installation downtown. You've seen it on the front of the CenturyLink building when we had the portraits of the teens, speaking to the fact that our teens are a really important part of our community and their voices are important. We released 400 butterflies on the side of Sadler Health Building. Most recently, this summer, they created a Juneteenth celebration installation that was on the side of the Bosler Library. And so we are requesting funding to make another downtown temporary, meaningful public art installation possible. So. And then do you have any questions? Because I said I'd keep it short.
Thanks, Becky.
Any sense of where it might end up being, Becky, physically?
Physically, we have agreements. Jeff said we could use the library windows again on occasion. I'm not sure if he's still there. CenturyLink has said we can use their windows again. So really, it'll the theme or the topic of the installation is always determined by the kids. You know, they look at what's happening, what's important in our community, what are they seeing and experiencing in the schools. So once they drill down into a theme and then develop, we'll look for the right space for it. So I also don't want to promise that it'll be at the library or the CenturyLink building. If there might be another opportunity, but those we do have, a possible agreement placement for it.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
More of just a comment, because one of the one installation that you talked about is a permanent installation. So I guess it was just because I love the permanent installations. I love the draw of like it's only going to last a little bit, but I'm also on the Carlisle board and love public art like you do. So I'm just wondering if there are, maybe not even this year, but is that something that it's always supposed to be just a temporary or could there be possibilities of more permanent installation?
So that's an interesting question because you're saying that the butterflies are the permanent one,
Yeah.
but we didn't know. It's the advice we took on the seal and peel, adhesive that is holding them is holding them. Like we are committed to Sadler to take it down when it starts looking poor. And so we actually have now talked about, should we add more butterflies to it? I know I'm aware that one of the signs either was pulled down, but they were temporary signage. And so we're like, do we replace it with another temporary sign or should we do something? Art is problem solving, is experimentation and learning. And we've learned that Seal and Peel does a pretty good job. It's hard because finding a permanent location is more difficult and there will be much higher costs and maintenance. I think that's what we are really trying to avoid is maintenance, and then the fees and the costs and who owns the building and whose wall is it? Are you taking care of it or are we taking care of it? So by doing the pop-up, eye-catching, meaningful, in the moment installations is sort of what we're focused on more now. I'm not opposed to, but it's a different process unless you get lucky and the butterflies just stay. So, I don't know if I should have admitted to that, but so.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other members of council? Okay, thanks again, Becky. I should say this about the library too, but my family, I know many families in the borough have utilized the services both of Calc and of the library, and we're very appreciative of it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thanks, Becky.
Yeah.
Next up is the Carlisle Joint Veterans Council. Do we have a representative?
I am trying to get Kirk into the meeting. I'm not sure why he hasn't shown up yet. He was there. I was trying to promote him to an attendee and he appears to have disappeared. So I don't know if we want to move on to the next one and hopefully we can get him.
Okay,
back.
sure.
Next one.
Next up would be Carlisle Opportunity Houses.
And I'm moving her over right now. And Joni, as soon as you unmute your mic, you should be good.
Okay. Are we good?
Okay, thanks, Joni. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I'm Jenny Capone, and I'm the treasurer, and I sit on the board of directors for Carlisle Opportunity Homes. I don't know if you know many things about Carlisle Opportunity Homes, but it was started 52 years ago by a group of gentlemen who wanted to address the housing code that was adopted by Carlisle back then to embark on a program to ensure that the dwellings in the borough were safe. And so Jimmy connected with, I think, Bill Burkholder and Dave Begeese and a couple other people. And they started this organization. Their mission became helping people of Carlisle to live in safe, healthy, and attractive neighborhoods. So for 52 years, they have been involved in a lot of things as far as housing is concerned for low incomes. They rehabilitated 40 older homes in Carlisle and offered them as rental homes for low income families. And then they also rehabbed 10 older homes and they sold them after they were repaired to first time homeowners for fair market price. And then they built 9 new homes and sold them at cost to first-time homeowners who met the low-income requirements. So those were the many things that were happening over the years. And because of the partnership that Jimmy was able to establish with the Housing Authority has a person on staff that is a manager for our rentals, and they allow us to have their maintenance people do the work and repairs on the homes as they come up, especially emergency needs such as the furnace not working, leaking toilets and those kinds of issues. Our funding is just basically the rent that we recover from every unit that is rented. The monthly rent has been coming in even over this time of COVID. Our tenants have really been able to step up and maintain paying those rents. And I think part of that is because they're very reasonable rents. They range from $250 a month, and the highest they go are $600 a month. And we only have 2 of our rental units where they're paying $600 a month. We have 32 units, and we're housing 17 families. We've got a number of older senior citizens who are fixed income living in the places, and a couple on disability. And these homes are the old ones in the northwest of town. Northwest Street, there's a number of homes, and West Penn Street, Lincoln Avenue, Lincoln Street. And because of the age of these homes, our funding goes not only to paying the homeowner's insurance and our tax bills for those rental units, but maintenance. And that's always an ongoing situation, and it's always a big surprise because these older homes have situations that just I've never been able to understand since my home was built in the 60s. Many of these places were built in the early and middle 1900s. So the maintenance costs are pretty high. So we're never able to have any funding to really spend on outside appearance of the places. And that's something that I've been engaged in and trying to, make the places a little more attractive, and in the same time making them safer for the people that are living there, because we have a couple that have siding, especially one house that has siding that really does need to be replaced, and it's impacting the heat bill for the person living there because of just the nature of how it's just not maintaining itself well. It does need to be replaced. Fences in the yards, they're decrepit and falling apart, and the funding for fencing, we were able to do a large area chain link fence behind a community of homes that we have, the row homes on West North Street, through a grant that was given to us by the Stewart Foundation, which was wonderful because that really helped that situation there to make it a nice, safe backyard. But we have a lot of other homes that have backyards with those kinds of situations. The wood fences are just decrepit, falling down, and they try to block them up with, cement blocks and other kind of items. And it would be nice to replace some of the fencing in those yards to make those yards safer for the families that are there to keep. And just the situation of a damaged fence might be, hazardous to any of the children that might be playing out in the yard at the time there. So that's basically the situation that we're kind of looking to expand into, using funding for those kinds of things. We do work with volunteers, and we tried to, I've been encouraging donations towards, items that we could use to help improve the outside appearances. And so this is kind of an ongoing project that I kind of got involved in. And I was thinking that if I made a proposal to you all, that this might be an opportunity to really step it up in the next year or two. Does anybody have any questions?
Jenny, is there a particular amount that you're requesting?
I'm not. That was just kind of, I wasn't sure whether that was an opportunity to ask for a requested amount, but we're just, whatever money we could, access towards this would just be a bonus, and it would just kind of get us rolling as far as maybe addressing one or two of the situations, because we have a number of them that we'd like to approach, but we'll be glad to just take care of maybe one of the situations that I presented with pictures whenever I sent my proposal in.
Okay. Is there a typical, probably not, the answer is probably going to be no, but is there sort of an average cost of what you're trying to address for these properties?
An average cost, that's a good question. I'm going to say maybe probably around $800.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions from council?
No questions, Mr. Deputy Mayor, but a comment for the benefit of council members. The Borough and Carl Housing Opportunities have a long history. When I first got on council back in 2002, they were involved in the Pride of Carlisle projects, which also focused on the Northwest quadrant and rehabbing older homes and then selling them to first-time home buyers. Very successful. I remember distinctly going to a conference and everybody was wondering how Carlisle did it. So that's the history, and so that's why, you know, their request, it'll be money put to good use.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And anyone else from council? Okay, thanks again, Jenny.
Okay, thank you.
Stephanie, has Kirk joined us yet?
No, I just texted him to tell him we lost him. So hopefully we'll hear from him before the end of this.
Okay.
So I think next is Carlisle
Yeah.
Victory Circle.
Yes.
Okay, good, because I did not have them on my list here. So,
And I'll take that one, Sean. I'm just going to read a statement from one of their co-founders, Linda Manning. So if you give me just a quick second here.
then we get to grill you.
Yeah, that'd be fun. The Carlisle Victory Circle Incorporated conscientiously attempts to create a community and culture in which students feel a strong sense of membership and responsibility. Ultimately, our mission is to challenge our students to prepare for their future through education and character development. We welcome and appreciate the opportunity to make application for funding offered by the Borough of Carlisle to help us achieve our goals. Our funding request is $2,500. Thank you sincerely, Linda Manning, President. And Linda is also one of our school board members too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I assume you support this request.
I do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We will then move on to Destination Carlisle, and I think I saw Stephanie Gilbert attending.
Yep, she's there. Just needs to, it looks like she just unmuted.
Okay.
Hi, good to see you all. And I hope everyone's well this evening. I'm happy to be here alongside some of my fellow downtown neighbors and to try to take advantage of this opportunity. Destination Carlisle, as many of you know, we're a volunteer merchant association down in downtown Carlisle. We like to try to work with businesses to connect them to each other so that they are more familiar with each other, can work together cooperatively when we find opportunities or they find opportunities to do so. We are trying to help raise the profile of downtown, especially to locals who may not come downtown very often. We want to help to improve doing business in downtown Carlisle. We've provided free business mentoring. You know, if someone has a question as far as, you know, there's trash that's been dumped out in front of my business, how do we get this taken care of? You know, we've been able to facilitate some of those things for them. Basically what we do is we try to build community in the downtown among businesses, the charities that are down there, residents, and other organizations. And what we would use the funding for, basically, since we're a volunteer merchant organization, we don't have any set source of funding, so we fundraise for each individual thing that we do. Of course, COVID has kind of hit our businesses who have been the major source of funding. Everybody kind of chips in whenever we have a crazy idea and we want to try to put it together. So that's been a little difficult this year. We had some other events and initiatives planned for this year that we had to abandon that would have helped fill in some gaps for us. But, you know, what would this funding be directly used for? It would be to maintain and expand our website and our virtual guide to downtown, which we launched this summer, to be able to continue to plan and implement events. And hopefully, if COVID, you know, is kind, we can start to add some new things next year in 2021. And then to cover mundane things like printing, toner, paper, all of the things we try to do in-house to cut our printing costs and save money. And that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Are there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, you're off the hook. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Next up, we have the Employment Skills Center.
So, 1 second, she'll be on her way over to the meeting.
Okay.
And that's Margaret.
Yep.
If so many people, it's on another page. There we go. Margaret, if you could just unmute your mic and you can go ahead and give your presentation.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's good to see you. As many of you know, Employment Skills Center has been part of the Carlisle community for over 54 years now. And over our 54 years, we have served nearly 20,000 residents. So just last year alone, we had 460 adults walk through our doors seeking services with their employment needs and their educational needs. So our core programs that we offer are GED preparation classes, adult basic ed, English as a second language, and then we have several workforce development programs. So one of our biggest workforce development programs is our nurse aid training. And just this week, we started our 73rd session. So to date, we have put nearly 1,000 frontline healthcare workers into employment. And those jobs, I just got the stats today, we have 65 applicants waiting right now for classes. So that shows the need for our services. We also have 20 applications waiting for forklift, and we have 48 for our adult basic ed and GED program. So I think COVID has presented many challenges, but the need for our services is probably stronger than ever. We are working on a hybrid model for some classes, and then we are working in site. We have classes right now. We have the nurse aid on site 3 days a week, and then they're doing Zoom classes the other 2 days. And then forklift will be a combination as well. Some of our GED classes are meeting on site 3 days a week, and the same with our adult basic ed. So, and then ESL, it was interesting, most of those have decided to continue to work from home. So they're doing Zoom classes, and a lot of that has to do with childcare barriers and maybe transportation right now. So our request for this is for $2,500, and for funding for our adult basic education class. We were informed in June that we were receiving a 78% budget cut to our state funding. So the impact of that, of course, has been huge. It's about $44,000 from our budget, and we are trying to apply to several places to try to make up that deficit. We do hope that some of that will be restored in November, but we are not confident that we'll get nearly what we've had in the past. So all programs are offered free of charge. We do have 2 additional locations. We have our South Hanover Street location, and then we also have a site over at the GB Stewart Community Center. And then we also work in partnership with the Carlisle High School. I think that's about all. If anybody has any questions for me.
Thank you, Margaret. Are there any questions from council? Okay, seeing none, thanks. Thanks again.
Right, thank you.
Next up is the Letort Regional Authority. And I think I saw maybe Fred on the Zoom.
Andy is as well. So Andy and Fred are both here.
Okay, all right, good.
And you guys can go when you're ready. You're unmuted.
Okay, Andy, were you going to start?
Might be all you, Fred.
It might be all me. All right, I wasn't planning on that, but hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. Andy, are you there? Just one last, I saw his mute thing go on and off. And oh, yeah, we heard you for a second.
Now?
Yes. There you go.
Okay.
Phew.
Thanks, Fred. As you know, the Letort Regional Authority is a multi-jurisdictional authority. It was created by the borough and the surrounding municipalities. Our mission is to protect and preserve the Letort Spring Run and its watershed, to develop access and recreational opportunities on the stream, and to promote land use and practices to preserve water quality and minimize flooding. Most of the borough drains into the Letort, so we really serve the entire borough. In addition, a few years ago, we did a trail use study that showed over 3,000 people per week were using the trail. And anecdotally, I would say that that number has probably gone up currently with people looking for activities, alternative activities to do in this age of COVID. We work extensively with the Parks and Rec Department, and we also play a role in the borough's MS4 needs and participate in several county-wide watershed efforts, the Watershed Implementation Plan, and so forth. This funding will primarily go towards our operations, our insurance needs, reporting, audit, maintenance of the trail. A lot of our funding for our programs and other projects comes from grants and fundraising that we do. And we are looking to continue the borough's contribution of $3,000 towards our operating budget, and that represents about 20% of our annual budget. So if there are any questions.
Any questions from council?
Andy, you mentioned that LaTorte Regional Authority is a multi-jurisdictional. Who are the other players in this other than the borough?
The active funding members are the surrounding townships, North Middleton, South Middleton, Middlesex, and North and South Middleton, Middlesex.
Okay.
Cumberland County was also one of the founding entities. They still have representatives on our board, but they have not provided any funding since 2013.
I think that should change.
I think so too.
Okay. But okay, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other council members with questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Fred, for almost pitching in too.
Sure.
Thank you both. Okay. Next up, we have Safe Harbor.
And Scott, you are unmuted, so whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you. Good evening. Thanks for giving us an opportunity to present to you this evening. I know that most, if not all of you, are familiar with Safe Harbor, but just in case, we provide a continuum of housing and supportive services for homeless and newly homeless individuals and families in our communities. We're requesting funding to support our life skills and parenting groups within our programs. These are very important programs. During the course of a year, over 200 individuals come through Safe Harbor in some way, including men, women, and children, and we estimate that about 95 folks will be taking advantage of those life skills and parenting classes in the upcoming year. These classes are designed to help residents either attain or hone skills that are going to be necessary as they leave our facility and move on to permanent housing and hopefully become productive members of society again. In addition to providing the classes for the men, the women, and the parents, we also provide on-site childcare and activities for the children while the parents are in these classes. The curriculum is a wide range of skills that you and I would take for granted because we've learned them either through life experiences or we were taught them by schools or parents or friends. Making such things as making a life plan, repairing your credit, renting an apartment, decision-making, financial situations such as how to have a checking account, how to have a credit card without running up a lot of debt. Everything that, again, you and I have probably learned through our lifetime that they either did not have the opportunity to learn or need a refresher to be able to, again, go out and be productive members of society. These classes align very well with the priorities of the borough, which was to, improving residents' quality of life, in particular individuals that are most at risk and vulnerable, and improving the quality of life for children and youth who are directly affected by education and subsequent success for their caregivers and parents. So by helping the parents, helping the adults, we are also helping the children as well. And also keeping them active while mom and dad are taking those classes. As we all know, affordable housing is a huge issue in our community, and it's been identified by the United Way of Carlisle and Cumberland County in their 2018 community assessment as being a significant issue. And so these classes that we provide for them are helpful, again, as they move forward, moving into society, to help them enter into that in even footing with everyone else who's out there already. We're asking for $2,500 to cover the cost. It does not cover the entire cost. We do have 3 very good trainers, basically, who provide these classes, one for the men, one for the women, one for the parents. So that is part of what this money would go for. It would also go for curriculum supplies, and also to help with the child care activities. We realize this evening you've heard from a lot of people, and you have a limited number of funds. So any funding that you might be able to provide would be appreciated. As I know you all know, every dollar counts for us. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Scott. Any questions from council? Okay. Thank you all. Thank you again, Scott. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have Spirit Empowered Ministries.
And Ronald,
Ron.
you should be good to go whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
We can, Ron. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you for having me tonight. I wanted to just introduce who we are. And Spirit Empowered Ministries is a non-denominational ministry effort that was developed and birthed in 2019 as an avenue to help connect people to God in non-denominational settings. We understand many people won't grace the door of a church, but there is a message of hope that we can reach the community with. So our mission and purpose really is to build strong, united relationships with other ministries and businesses within the community. We do spend time, we're very relational, and part of our mission is equipping and discipling people in the teachings of Jesus, helping people find their identity as contributors to the community. We do offer inner healing prayer and restoring wholeness to the heart. So many people walk with wounded hearts from past experiences, and we work with them one-on-one to identify where the root sources of those pain points are and to get them healing. And the last part of our mission and purpose is developing next generational leadership. What we have been doing and how we serve the community simply is, the discipleship of believers. We're not a church. We work with people one-on-one, personal prayer, as I did explain. But the reason that we're reaching out to the borough tonight is the third leg of the stool really is community outreach. And so we have a small group of people that began to, when COVID hit earlier this year, we wanted to provide life essentials. Like, we believe that people are in need of obtaining life essentials. And through that, we felt that we had an avenue to be able to touch people that may need, there people were losing jobs due to COVID. There was toilet paper shortages, basic things like masks, hand sanitizer, things of that nature. And so what we began to do is we partnered with a business in downtown who gave us their parking lot, and we started a drive-through of giving out these life essential items such as masks, hand sanitizers, some food, toilet paper, things that were harder to get earlier in the year. And since then, we've continued to do this for once a week, every week for 2 hours on Fridays from 11 to 1 o'clock. And we've been serving on average 50 to 60 families. Hygiene products, the big thing that people have been coming to us for have been diapers. And we've been handing those out weekly. We are approaching the borough about assistance and funds because every dime that's raised is by donation. Every person that is serving is through donation. And what we're doing is we're spending, I don't know, I'd say probably about $250 to $300 a week just to supply goods to hand out. Now, certainly we started in April doing this drive-through, we needed to hand out certain items that are more easily readily available now than they were back then. But we conservatively estimate we could serve over 2,600 families in a year if we continue to do that. Another thing that we're looking at is how do we continue in this COVID environment, a drive-through as the winter months approach. And we have need for certainly additional supplies, but storage and transportation. We have sourced a diaper bank. So we are now partnering with a diaper bank that is providing diapers so that we can give out in Carlisle. And we are also getting donations of perishable foods and things of that nature that we can package up and give out to people as well. So that is a little bit about who we are, what we've done. We've also were able to come across curriculum, and we're just before school started, we're able to donate 240 books, including workbooks, flashcards, dictionaries. I think it was 8 versions of curriculum to a daycare in Newville. So as we obtain donations, we want to pass them through to other organizations that can use them. And currently this year, over 80% of our budget has gone to investing back into the community. So that is what we are doing currently. And if there are any questions, I would welcome them.
Any questions from council?
Yeah, I have a quick question, Deputy Mayor. It looks like the work here is great, and that was a really great overview. I just wanted to just ensure that sort of your community outreach is tethered to your religious services in more of a passive way, and that your services are sort of separated from your religious offerings.
Yeah, absolutely. So we understand that when people have needs, they essentially, prayer is a way to engage people. But our intention, quite honestly, is to just love people with no strings attached. There is no pitch to the people that are coming through the drive-through. We're trying to meet the need for life essentials that, quite honestly, we get repeat families that are coming through on a weekly basis, and they're expressing that the things that we're supplementing, such as diapers or maybe some food, is helping them meet the rent for their month or whatever that is. So yeah, so hopefully that brings clarity to that. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you. It sounds like you understand our
yes
the thought there, so thank you.
Certainly.
A quick question, Ron. You said that you were using a parking lot. Is that for your weekly drive-through helping folks? Is that drive-through happening in the borough?
Yes, it is. It is the parking lot on West Pomfret Street. Griswold Home Care is the owner of the building. It used to be the Red Cross building.
Right.
And so we have people coming in off of Pomfret Street and then exiting on the alley back behind. I'm not sure what the alley is.
I don't know which one it is either.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, but we keep things moving and are very conscious of the traffic pattern.
Any other questions from council? Okay, thank you very much, Ron. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. We are going to jump back to the Carlisle Joint Veterans Council, and I understand we now have former Mayor Kirk Wilson back with us. Kirk, are you there?
We just need him to unmute his mic and then. Because I see him, but he just.
Yeah. There you go.
There we go.
We got you. Go ahead, Kirk.
Thanks. I apologize for being late.
That's okay. I understand you had some difficulty with the signal, so it's all
Well,
yours.
I was in the mountains at State College. I assume that you've all had an opportunity to review my proposal to you this year on behalf of the Carlisle Joint Veterans Council. Briefly, we do a Memorial Day parade and ceremony each year. We do a Veterans Day ceremony each year. Obviously, the Memorial Day this year was unique, and Veterans Day will be unique as well. But hoping to look forward to returning to some form of normality next year. We did increase our request, and it basically has to do with two reasons. Number one is that the liability insurance up until last year was costing us about $99. When we applied this year, it jumped to $637. I checked with two other agencies who said they were in the area between $800 and $900, so that the $600 figure was better. The other thing that has increased our costs is that a wreath is always placed at the monument on the square in Veterans Memorial Courtyard. For years, Jimmy George had dropped that off, and we never seemed to get a bill for it. We all know that Jimmy passed and George's is closed, but I checked with one local florist, and that's not going to cost us about $150 two times over for the budget year next year. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thanks, Kirk. Are there any questions from council? Okay, it doesn't look like there are any, Kirk. Thanks again for doing the best you could with Memorial Day this year.
It turned out well, thank you.
I think so, yeah, thanks. All right, have a good evening.
Thanks, take care, bye.
Bye. Next up is Summer Fair, and I think we have David with us.
Yep, if you just mute your mic, David. There we go.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
We can, go ahead.
All right, well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you guys tonight. I believe you guys probably got our letter requesting, I guess, $500 that you guys have donated in the past to us. For those that aren't familiar with Summer Fair, our big thing is we provide about 10 days over the July 4th holiday and host free activities throughout the community. Whether it's from, cheap sneakers, the band at Dickinson campus, kids activities, various kids activities, events around Dickinson College, Carlisle High School, and we are fully funded by donations. So every bit counts, and as sponsorships dwindle, we are looking to hopefully continue the relationship we have with you guys, as well as attract new donations. Happy to answer any questions. Appreciate the time that you guys have allotted Summer Fair to, speak to you guys.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council?
Just a quick one. Can you, how long have you been doing this?
So this is our 44th year hosting these events throughout the Carlisle Borough. Last year was canceled, obviously, due to COVID. So we are 43 out of 44 consecutive years.
Great, yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Seeing none, I don't believe we have any other organizations. Thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
Stephanie, we didn't have any last minute applications that
That's the last one.
Okay, all right. So these items then will be considered going forward. I do want to thank Councilor Fulham Winston and Councilor Landis for working to put new guidelines together for these outside agency requests. They were sort of done willy-nilly in the past, and I think we saw how that could go terribly wrong last year. And I think we can see how it's going much better this year. So thank you both for your efforts. You're both on either side of my screen, so I'm bouncing back and forth to look at you. So thank you both. Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you. You're muted, Tim.
That would help, wouldn't it? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve the September 2nd, 2020 workshop meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Schultz. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded by Ms. Fulham Winston. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Now moving down to Mayor's report, I have 3 items, and we'll hopefully try and get to this as expeditiously as possible. The first up is a discussion on trick or treat. I'd like to kick things off. I have a statement that I'll enter into the record. I won't read the whole thing, but I'll just read relevant parts. As mayor, I give the okay for trick or treat night. Last year, because of the very real possibility of a severe thunderstorm that threatened our region on the night set aside for trick or treat, I opted to cancel it in favor of something indoors. That decision was met with unapologetic outrage by some parents who thought it was unfair to deny their children the opportunity to trick or treat in a thunderstorm. That's why, for this year and moving forward, I recommend that Borough Council take ourselves out of the Halloween business and simply make it a decision for parents and neighbors whether to have trick or treat night on October 31st. The borough can offer some recommendations as to safety and proper social distancing, but parents need to decide if it's safe enough for their children to go door to door and collect candy. Likewise, neighbors need to make the same assessment. Anybody else has any thoughts on trick or treat?
A big fan of trick-or-treating. It's one of my favorite evenings of the year, and I know Brenda feels much the same. But I too think the council should not be part of this, that this should be about neighborhoods and parents and people making an individual decision for their family and their children and their block, and that it really doesn't have a governmental necessity of oversight.
Thank you, Deb. Any other thoughts?
I agree wholeheartedly. I love trick-or-treat night on Halloween. I do understand that there have been some, there's been some rationale that maybe there was concerns of trick-or-treating on a weekend, and they even said, at certain times about football nights. I didn't get to do the research to figure out how many football nights it actually fell on a Halloween Friday night. But I do think that, as a borough, we can, think of these things in advance and address if we need to have a little bit more safety in particular areas if we have some concerns. So I think that we can be cognizant of it, but, be safe and just have it on the books. And that way folks aren't necessarily looking to us for all the guidance. I did my next door poll. It's still sitting at 67% people want it on Halloween and 33% so that they could do the Thursday before. But unscientific polling, but whatever. I will put in my one other plug because I love to, it's not about trick or treat. It is about the parade. This has been my thing for at least a decade, and I'm going to say it publicly because I love the parade. The trick or treat night and the parade are my favorites. I work at Dickinson College, and there was only one year ever that I worked, and I've worked there for 17 years, that the Halloween parade happened when the students were not on fall pause. It was about 2 years ago. And I got about 15 of us to recreate The Wizard of Oz and Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon in bike form. And it was awesome. And I do think that Dickinson is part of our community. So if there is a way that we could coordinate so that in the future, or at least consider it, to allow Dickinson to participate in our Halloween parade, I think it would add a new creative spirit.
Brenda, did we lose you? Oh, okay. Technology can be kind of crazy sometimes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could take this time while we're waiting for her to come back, hopefully, just really quickly, I agree with your recommendation to get out of the business of determining whether we officially have a trick-or-treat evening, but I would like us to remain a source of information for neighborhoods. We may uniquely be in a position to know about a public health or a safety situation that others may not, but as long as we can maintain a point of contact that neighborhoods who are looking to plan this can have a reliable source to help make them the decision that's right for them.
Absolutely, I agree. And also Parks and Rec should still continue to offer their activities as well. So you raise a good point, 2 good points.
Yep.
Back with us yet. Mr. Crampsey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While we wait for Councilmember Landis. Just wanted to agree with what was said, and to Joel's point, you know, if communities do contact the borough and are having these activities, if there's any way we can just inform residents, the only fear I would have is, you know, if there are different neighborhood events happening, drivers, just being aware that, you know, there'll be young children out. And then outside of that, the other thing I'll recommend for this year, while I agree we should not be involved, I would recommend any neighborhood group or neighborhood looking to do this to visit the CDC's website. Last week, they put out new guidance saying that traditional trick-or-treating is actually a high risk this year due to COVID. And they are advising against the traditional model of going door to door and accepting candy from folks. So I just want to put that out there for all the folks in our community. If they are planning events this year, I think one of the safer events the CDC said is, you know, things that can be grab and go at the end of driveways instead of going into folks' homes. Thank you.
Correct. Plenty of options out there for folks. I don't even, is Brenda even still with us?
Yes, she's back.
Okay.
She's back.
Brenda, would you like to finish your comment?
Oh, it looks like we lost her again.
Okay. All right.
I have one more comment. If trick or treat is always on Halloween, it also means that any public safety folks who want to be aware and prepared for any unusual eventuality would always know that it was on the same night every year.
Right. And I agree. Most folks prefer to celebrate it on Thursday. So if we just know that going into it, you're right. Our EMS, our fire and police departments will know, okay, this is when we got to get ready. And there you go. Okay.
I know Deb sort of alluded to it, but just to clarify, I think what we're saying is, as far as a community, we're sort of suggesting you go ahead on Halloween night. So we're not going to have this, we're not going to have a free-for-all where there might be groups of kids out on Halloween night, and maybe if it's on the weekend, the Thursday before, it's the 31st, that's when we're going to be prepared to ensure additional safety. I think it's important for everybody to understand.
Correct. Andrea, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, just to clarify for people who are listening, are you talking about changing the trick-or-treat date for this year or starting it next year? I know we've already said October 29th.
Yeah. I guess it would be my preference to already have it set for October 29th to do that. But moving forward, October 31st, and it's up to neighborhoods and parents to figure it out.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments on this discussion topic? Okay. Well, moving on. Letters of support. I'll give you some background and then I'll ask for a motion dealing with the action item. Tonight I'm asking council to endorse a letter to the Public Utility Commission regarding PPL's lack of engagement with its local community-based energy efficiency contractors who perform vital weatherization services for low-income customers here in the borough and elsewhere as well. It appears that PPL is not honoring their contracts, and now they're seeking to fundamentally change the program. This puts many of our low-income neighbors at risk during the months ahead if they're unable to take advantage of this program, which is known as the Low Income Usage Reduction Program, which is supported by tax dollars. I was approached by Rick Ravino, who represents a consortium of contractors that are concerned about this. And it's my understanding they tried to work with PPL, but have been ignored. And now they're going to try to bring in folks, especially the PUC that has oversight over their operations and all utilities in Pennsylvania. So tonight I am seeking a motion to approve sending letters of support to the PUC and chairs of the Public Utility Oversight Committees in the House and Senate, asking that PPL engage with its contractors to develop safety protocols to allow for the resumption of work supporting low-income citizens.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this? I know I kind of went through that kind of fast, but.
I didn't mean that
sir,
second to be a question.
Sorry, go ahead, Deb.
Only to say that finding out that PPL was not living up to its responsibility was really an unpleasant piece of information to obtain. And yes, they should be doing what they signed up to do.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, yeah, the only comment I had, well, I have two comments. First of all, moving forward, I certainly want to maintain a, close working relationship with PPL, as they're going to be a major stakeholder in our climate action plan, and we can all agree on that. And in the points that were brought up on to include possibly in the letter, it was not clear to me what the disagreements were between the terms that we referred to as actual savings and deemed savings. I have heard those terms used before, and I have a little bit of an appreciation for what some of the benefits are of using one or the other term and who it impacts. I would be more comfortable to learn specifically what the differences mean to us in those terms before we move on with that language in the letter. I just don't understand quite what the impact of moving from actual savings to deemed savings means, either to PPL, to our low-income communities, or to the service providers who are providing those energy efficiency services. So I would request that we have that information.
Okay, yeah, no problem. I can certainly get clarification and get back to you all about that.
And I'll just thank you. Other than that, it does seem like a discussion is needed, and I'm glad that got brought forward. So,
yeah, I mean, again, this is just to encourage the PUC to have the discussion. We can't make them do anything, but we're just trying to make them aware. Any other thoughts on this? All right, we have a motion and a second. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. Thank you. Next up, NLC commitment. I've been working with our very capable Assistant Borough Manager, Owen Snyder, on the National League of Cities City Innovation Ecosystems Commitment Program. Our focus area in this program is rethinking how Carlisle solicits technology for civic problems to be more attractive to potential partnerships with startups and tech-based entrepreneurs. The borough has begun working with CivStart to build inclusive ecosystems, and CivStart builds inclusive ecosystems that serve local governments and their communities. CivStart's already developed a draft plan and has identified possible strategies that could meet our needs. So I'm asking for an affirmative vote to demonstrate the borough's commitment to participation in this partnership. And so I will move that council retroactively approve commitment statement made as part of NLC City Innovation Ecosystem Commitment Program. And the commitment reads, the Borough of Carlisle commits to rethinking how it solicits technology solutions for civic problems to be more attractive to potential partnerships with startups and technology-based entrepreneurs. I so move.
Second the motion.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion on this? Owen has been doing the real heavy lifting on this, so you can refer any questions to him about the actual nuts and bolts of it, if there are any. All right. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. And that ends my mayor's report. And we'll move directly into public safety. And item A is decriminalization of cannabis, a discussion. I'll turn things over to my esteemed colleague, Councilman Jeff Stubbe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As those here in attendance on council know, and in public, at last month's meeting, I brought up the subject of decriminalizing cannabis in the borough. And I thank you all for putting it on the agenda tonight as a discussion item. To kick things off, we are joined this evening by Mr. Les Stark, who is the Executive Director of the Keystone Cannabis Coalition. And Mr. Stark has a presentation he would like to share with us. So I will turn things over to him for his comments. Yeah, Mr. Stark, just make sure to unmute yourself. You're still muted.
Hello. I'm the executive director.
You're coming across as a little broken up there. I don't know if you have a connection issue by chance. Can't really hear you right now.
Stephanie, can you mute his microphone and maybe send him a message?
So it looks like there are some maybe connectivity issues that Mr. Stark is having. Maybe as he straightens those out, I will see if there's anybody else in attendance that has public comment they would like to offer on this subject, whether attending in person or virtually before council discusses.
All right, well, until we can resolve these issues, Mr. Stubbe, do you mind if we jump down to the next?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea if you want to move ahead, and then we can jump back to this.
Okay. Economic Development Committee.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to have Borough Council consider a Carlisle Borough shop setting loan request for Doe and Arrow for a potential project at 105 North Hanover Street, my favorite street in the borough. And do we have Rebecca Urich here?
We do. She's on her way up.
Okay. I will let her explain this request.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see some of you live and in person here tonight, and those on Zoom as well. It wasn't so long ago that when I was working with potential businesses looking to land in downtown Carlisle and using our space exploration services, that North Hanover Street was the place they didn't want to be. They didn't care to be. Oh, how things have changed. Thanks to you and our partners, North Hanover is happening now. And we've added retail and restaurant spaces, eats and treats places, over a dozen of them, just through the Carlisle Borough programs. And here comes another. We have Doe and Arrows, gourmet ice cream and edible dough. Finally, permission slip to eat dough. Owners Brandon and Crystal Blevins are with us here tonight. They'll open a second location at 105 North Hanover Street. That's next to Red Smokehouse Barbecue. They have a buyer interest in the building. In 3 years, they will own that building. And that will end what has been since 2008, a revolving door of, by my count, 9 different businesses in that particular unit. So this is very good news. They'll move their production facility from South Hanover, make more room in the unit for smiling customers, and they'll rev up deliveries. That's deliveries, not the old ice cream truck vehicle, the man with the white pants and the white shirt, the white bow tie, and the circus music in the background, but scheduled delivery to neighborhoods across the region, more like the milkman. And it will be the only creamery downtown. The Blevins purchased this business in January of 2020. First quarter sales for 2020 were up markedly from all of 2019 sales. And that's amidst the COVID-related shutdown and stay-at-home order that went into effect on March 19th. March 20th, they boasted a 217% increase over their 2019 sales for that same month. That is a whole lot of licking. But their menu isn't limited just to Penn State Berkey Creamery goods, ice cream. They make their own ice cream treats and cheesecakes and cookies and brownies and beverages. You can enjoy them inside the store, or you can take out, or you can get scheduled delivery to your home, to your workplace, or to a socially distanced gathering. Everything made with locally sourced ingredients. This $50,000 CDBG loan request is for equipment, fixtures and furnishings, equipment like freezers and refrigerators and ovens, supplies, inventory, and for working capital. The project adds to the neighborhood, offering something really different with a proven business looking to expand right here in downtown Carlisle on a block that's beyond trending now, with 7, count them 7, new businesses, expanded businesses, or renewed businesses in just the past year, like Hook and Flask Stillworks, the Carlisle Antique Mall, Transformation Training and Fitness, the most recent one, Sunrise Cafe, which celebrates 1 year in October, and more. Tenant Doe and Arrows will put another $128,000 into this project, an investment in their new building, their new address, and their new community. That's 72% of the total project cost, which I think is the highest owner equity portion, owner cash portion I've ever seen in a project in Carlisle Borough. The loan has a 2% interest rate that will be amortized over 25 years with a balloon payment due in 7 years. The CDBG shop steading loan will be secured by a second lien on residential real estate that they own. It's a rental property in Reading Township, Adams County, as well as our traditional personal guarantees and liens on the equipment. As a condition of the loan, they will hire 2 full-time or part-time equivalent positions within 2 years of settlement. They employ 20 people right now in South Hanover and expect to do about the same here in Carlisle. 2020 has been quite a year. Here's a business like many in downtown that have reimagined and retooled their operations with great success. You'll see a solid and sustainable business. You'll also see the mobile ice cream fountain on wheels that will come to your neighborhood. I saw it last week in Mount Holly, quite unexpectedly. That just proves in retrospect that while we can do without many things, ice cream isn't one of them. We look for your approval of this request, finance Doe and Arrows, and their move to downtown, opening in late fall to early winter 2020, maybe early 21. Customers will be very happy. Doe and Arrows will earn great flavor with those customers because they'll be open. You'll be able to get scoops or drinks or treats 7 days a week. We welcome any questions that you might have about this request. No questions, all right.
I have one question, Rebecca, and before I make a motion, I did notice, and I may be looking at some old rules on the loan, but we have, I think, a different maximum loan amount depending on whether the borrower owns the property or not. And it looks to me at the information I pulled up that if the business does not own the building, the maximum loan they can request is $35,000. Am I looking at old information?
Well, those are guidelines. You're looking at information that we typically address. Those are guidelines. They aren't regulations. And when we look at this, a project as a whole, we look at what all the business is doing. We have provided loans of over $35,000 to business tenants before.
on projects that were very large scale. One example of that would be brick. Another example was Hamptons. The situation was a little bit different with that one in that the redevelopment authority owns that building. They have an install sales agreement to purchase the property. They have put $50,000 down on that property. They're leasing, that entity will be a related entity, not the identical entity, but they have a very, very quick turnaround time for that agreement, in that usually those agreements are 20 or 25 years, and this one is 3. So that tells me an awful lot about them and the business and their intent to be wildly successful. But you're correct, the guidelines suggest for a business tenant that we look at $35,000 as the maximum, and if you own the property, $70,000. This one's kind of in between.
Thank you, Rebecca, and that helps clarify it up for me. And knowing those guidelines are probably for your own evaluative criteria, and you are submitting this request, that helps me.
Councilor Hicks, if I may.
Yeah.
This is not an action item this evening. This is just the briefing itself. The action will occur next Thursday at the council meeting, and at that time you will be provided additional detail.
Okay.
And everything is always subject also to the satisfactory review and approval of your solicitor. So this gives you a little bit more time that we can flesh out any of those types of questions over the course of the next week.
Thank you for that clarification. And it may just be an indicator that I like to have the possibility of having ice cream 2 blocks from my house. Maybe that's part of it, but I'll have to hold my horses for another week. Thank you.
It's no accident that transformation training and fitness is a couple of doors down, may I add.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Thank you. Thank you for your question.
Mr. Hicks, does that end your report?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does end my report this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go back to public safety. Item number A. I believe Mr. Stark is with us. And Jeff, I'll turn things back over to you.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Stark, are you is your audio working at this time? Okay, thanks. Mr. Stark, still can't seem to hear you. I don't know. Oh.
Hello?
Yep, okay, can hear you there.
I'm unmuted. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I think we can hear you now, so you're good to go.
Begin?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. All right. Hello. My name is Les Stark. I'm the executive director of the Keystone Cannabis Coalition. We're a statewide organization dedicated to changing our archaic and outdated cannabis laws. I'm a lifelong resident of Lancaster County, mostly Ephrata, but as a child I lived in Akron, Brownstown, Rossville, and Leola. I currently reside in Mount Penn in Berks County, right on the border of Reading. Our organization has many members from Carlisle, Cumberland County, and the surrounding region, and is on their behalf that I speak. In February of 2019, I attended and spoke at a meeting on Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman's cannabis legalization listening tour at the American Legion Post 109 in Mechanicsburg. The newspapers reported that there were about 150 people, and about 75% of the crowd favored the legalization of cannabis. That sounds about right to me. The room was packed, standing room only, and they were lined up out in the hall. Many could not get in the building. When I spoke, I said that there has always been a tension between the individual and society, freedom and public safety, rights and responsibilities. In America, We strive for a balance between these opposing forces. We sometimes err on one side or the other. Fortunately, our system of democracy within the framework of a republic allows for us to make course corrections as new knowledge and new understanding, as well as changing public sentiment suggest. At the beginning of this month, on September 1st, we reached the 87-year anniversary of cannabis prohibition in Pennsylvania. The original law was introduced by a brand new freshman legislator from West Lawn in Berks County named Chester A. Mohn. Mohn took office in January of 1933 and introduced the bill in March. It sailed through in record time, and it was signed into law by Republican Prohibitionist Governor Gifford Pinchot on May 22nd. It went into effect on September 1st, 1933, and immediately the arrest commenced. It was curiously timed, as just 3 months later, the official end of alcohol prohibition came to pass, and beer went on sale in Pennsylvania. Up until 1972, a person could receive 2 to 5 years in prison for mere possession of any amount of cannabis, and many people, especially Black and brown people, but also poor whites, did the max amount of time. In late 1971, the Pennsylvania State Police actually put a moratorium on all cannabis arrests and continued into 1972 until, with the same policy until it was changed. 1972 is when the law was reduced to the penalties we currently have on the books. A criminal misdemeanor with a max fine of $500 and 30 days in jail. That was a year that Raymond Schaefer, who headed up President Nixon's Schaefer Commission, recommended the decriminalization and possible legalization of cannabis. Schaefer, of course, was the former governor of Pennsylvania. During the rest of the 1970s, the legislature of Pennsylvania tried to pass legislation that would go further than the 1972 law and truly decriminalize cannabis. The times were different back then, though. In this case, the legislature was actually ahead of the people. There was not enough support, and repeated attempts failed. Then came the 80s, and the pendulum swung far in favor of the punitive. F&M, Quinnipiac, and Mercy Herbs all have increasing majority support for cannabis legalization in Pennsylvania, and have now since at least 2017. It should be realized that what is being proposed in Carlisle is not drastic, it is not radical.
Still some technical issues with Mr.
Yeah, it seems that we did lose you again there, Mr. Stark. Although I do appreciate the presentation that you were offering there. I think that was some very helpful information. Maybe we'll move forward with discussion as a council and kind of go from there. And I think maybe I'll just kick things off, since I did bring this up last month, and then I will turn it over to everyone else here on council for their comments. At this point, I did work on putting together at least a rough draft of an ordinance based on some of the other ordinances that are in effect in other municipalities across Pennsylvania. And I do think that we have a template that we can follow, moving the possession of cannabis, the possession of cannabis paraphernalia, and then smoking cannabis in a public location from a misdemeanor offense to a summary offense that would then have a fine attached to it, as opposed to the possibility for arrest. There are, I think there are a variety of reasons for doing so, many of which I highlighted last month when I spoke on this, so I don't want to take up too much airtime, and I will turn things over to my colleagues here on council for their thoughts and comments. I think at this point, what I would perhaps like to do would be to push that draft ordinance that I at least put together as a rough draft to staff and the solicitor for them to review, considering that I am not a solicitor myself, so I think that would need to go under that review. And then ideally next month at our workshop meeting, have that available to the public for view, and then we could further discuss it. But before getting to that point, I think I'll open the floor up to everyone else here on council for your comments and thoughts.
Any comments from council? Any thoughts?
Might we, oh, you go ahead, Deb.
Oh, okay. I agree with Councillor Stubbe that we're looking at a situation that doesn't make any kind of sense. And the statistics are horrible in terms of looking at who gets arrested for these minor offenses. Most of the folks who get arrested are people of color, not white young men or women who are partying at equal amounts. And it just seems like a basic inequity. And in addition, given the fact that we have already essentially had the Commonwealth say that marijuana is safe, or at least medical marijuana is safe, it seems incredibly hypocritical to continue to criminalize the use and possession of small amounts of marijuana, even though the feds have not decided whether, that that's something that's logical for them. So I would totally agree with the proposition that Mr. Stubbe is putting forward.
Thank you, Deb. Sean?
Which Sean?
Sean Schultz, sorry.
Okay. Okay. I'd suggest, I think that the timeline's fine moving forward with the ordinance. I'd support that. I'd also want, in conjunction with that, some background, some data from the borough, maybe a report from staff that might at least allow us to balance the pros and cons, what this means, on the street in law enforcement, allow us to look at some data on the disparate impact and consequences of enforcement here in the borough itself. I'm quite aware of the statistics nationwide. I imagine they bear out pretty similarly here, but I'd like to see that. And I absolutely, I'll tell you, the war on drugs, I believe, has been a pretty ineffective mess for the last 80, 90 years. It's something that I hope would be addressed at a federal level, at the very least at a state level, but much like climate change. The action's not happening there, so we need to consider what we need to do at this level.
Any other comments?
I have one comment, Mr. Mayor.
Certainly.
And just as I'm hearing the community discuss this, and this is purely anecdotal, but I think it's important as we're moving forward is what this initiative is looking to examine is not promoting cannabis. What we're talking about is addressing it commensurate with what it really is. And the criminalization of cannabis use is a much different issue than promoting cannabis as a market good or what have you. I mean, that's a different discussion. Maybe we'll have it at a different day. And I just want to make sure that everyone on council, but anyone who's listening understands this is not about promoting cannabis. This is about treating it for what it really is and treating it for what the relative harm it is or is not relative to a person's permanent record.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Any further discussion?
I'll just concur with Deputy Mayor Schultz when he said about the hope for the federal level, but by us taking the initiative locally and more municipalities doing that, and then it bubbles up to the state, and things can bubble up as other municipalities and the small groups support these initiatives. That's how a lot of times you turn federally on some of these kind of contentious topics. So I completely agree with the whole rationale, but I do also see it as an important step in the process of just getting more groups, more municipalities on board, and then hopefully we can collectively have a larger voice. So.
Thank you. Did I hear Sean Cramsey as well?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councilor Stubbe, for bringing this initiative up and for the work you've already done on this. I'm excited for the discussion that we're going to have. I'm excited for us to dive into the ordinance. I'm supportive of this type of ordinance. I think as we see, and as was said by some of the other councilors, the inconsistencies, whether you look in our bordering states or within our state, New Jersey folks are voting right now and will vote up till November 3rd to actually legalize cannabis. Washington, D.C. has legalized it. Delaware, it's decriminalized in a lot of our neighboring states. It's decriminalized in Steelton. So I think it's a point for us to start to see, you know, you could be cited in Steelton for a small amount, but then if you drive, I think Deb hit the nail on the head. We've seen the medical impacts. The state has made a statement and said this can be used for medical reasons. So we have situations in our borough where a neighbor with a medical card is fine, and their next door neighbor will be cited at a higher offense, while the neighbor with the medical card will not be cited. So I think I'm in favor of the decriminalization movement. And I think to Brenda's point as well, it pushes that discussion a bit further so for folks in Harrisburg and folks in Washington, D.C. Can start maybe getting their heads around this to make it consistent for us across the state. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Cramsey. And I'll just say that if you are a fan of criminal justice reform, this is where it starts. This is how we can make our mark on that through this decriminalization effort. And I would just add that that we consider possibly making it a pilot program. That way we can analyze the data and make a data-driven decision based on what happens perhaps a year from now if we decide to adopt this ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just add a few more things, if that's okay before we move on.
Sure,
so I will just say, in terms of your proposal for a pilot program, the Borough of Steelton did do that. So if we are looking to do that, their ordinance would obviously offer us a template. I would also say to Deputy Mayor Schultz's comments, a number of the ordinances that I did see included reporting features. So as staff is looking into this in terms of the statistics that exist in our borough, I think it might be helpful to reach out to some of the other municipalities that have done this, because they have collected data on this. And one final thing I would share, the Sentinel actually ran 3 articles on cannabis decriminalization in December 2017 by reporter Joshua Vaughn. There are some very helpful there's some very helpful information, some very enlightening information in those articles, particularly as it relates to this subject in Cumberland County and in our area. So I would encourage my colleagues on council and anyone listening in to review those articles. I think there's some very enlightening information there that will be helpful. But again, like I said, I think my proposal would be to, similar to what we've done for some other subjects in the past, put together a draft ordinance that we could post online in advance of the workshop meeting next month, that we could then review and discuss at that workshop meeting if council's amenable to that. But I'll end my comments and turn it back over to you now, Mayor Scott.
Thank you very much. I guess seeing no further discussion, we will go ahead and move on. We've been skipping around, but I believe Parks and Recreation is up next.
The speed bump?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, we're not talking about public safety. Staff update on the West Penn Street speed bump. I apologize.
Good evening. In your meeting packet is a petition signed by 62 individuals, the majority of which reside at either 1 or 2 West Penn Street apartments, requesting the installation of 2 speed humps along the first block of West Penn Street. Since receipt of that petition, staff has reached out to the maintenance folks at 1 and 2 West Penn and spoke to them. There is currently a mid-block crosswalk there that previously had some portable signage of yield to pedestrians within the crosswalk. That signage has been lost or stolen. Staff has secured some new signs and delivered those signs to the maintenance staff this week, and they have installed the sign. We've also spoken to some representatives about plans that Borough has regarding the Carlisle Connectivity Project and what the current status of that project is and what impact that would have on the intersection of West Penn, East Penn, and North Hanover Street. I believe in your meeting packet there's a schematic showing the proposed roundabout there that would also eliminate eastbound traffic from West Penn Street east of the last driveway entrance to 1 and 2 West Penn. 1 and 2, those driveway entrances are where the current mid-block crosswalk is currently located. Later on in the meeting, you will be asked to consider a resolution authorizing staff to submit a grant application for additional funding for this project. That project is currently on hold until the funding is further clarified. However, if we proceed with the project at its current schedule, it's likely that there will be no activity occurring there from a construction standpoint until probably next summer. So we have a time period here between October 1st, tomorrow, and next summer where there's potential for continuation of the current condition. Back last November, I believe staff had drafted a traffic calming policy that was considered partially considered by council, and that the first step in that draft traffic calming policy was for residents in the area to, the majority of the residents living in the area to sign a petition that would solicit then further study in the area related to the installation of such traffic calming steps as a temporary speed hump. Staff does have a temporary speed humps that we've installed elsewhere in the borough that have been put in during the summer months and taken out during the winter months to prevent snow and ice issues related to the speed hump. So if typically those temporary speed humps are installed, or excuse me, are installed through late November, early December, and then taken out over December through mid-March, and then reinstalled in the springtime. So if council is considering something like this, the timing would be such that we could put a temporary hump in place for the next potentially month, and then remove it, and then put it in again in the spring, until such time as construction starts in sometime in summer months.
Seems like straightforward. Does anyone on council have any questions about this? If not, there are heads nodding. I believe there are. You have your instructions, Mark. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thanks.
All right. Now, moving on. Parks and Recreation.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I had a little technological hiccup. So I do still have my agenda up on a different computer. I just won't refresh the page because I don't know if I have internet on it. I have 2 action items tonight. I move that Borough Council enter into an agreement with the Cumberland Valley Youth Cycling Development to install a pump track on the northeast corner of Valley Meadows Park. CYCD must raise all funds necessary for the design, construction, and ongoing maintenance of the proposed pump tracks, as well as providing all insurances and indemnifications. I can't get the word out tonight, sorry. You're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. I will second that motion. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
We do have Jonathan Cox of the CYCD on the call. If he's got some words to say, I think he wanted to talk.
Oh, certainly. Mr. Cox, you have the floor.
I think John may have some video also.
Oh, how exciting. Either way, Mr. Cox, you have the floor.
We're not hearing you. It appears, do you have a, are you on a computer? Because it says you don't have a microphone. There we go. It looks like it's connected.
Okay.
There you go, John.
We'll fix all this in editing, don't worry.
All right. I was trying to call in I thought maybe the audio would be better on my phone, but we'll try it through my computer. Anyways, thank you very much for passing the motion, adopting the motion this evening to approve the agreement with Cumberland Youth Cycling Development. I just wanted to express my sincere thanks and gratitude to the continued support of the borough. Sorry, my loud dog has decided to start barking. Especially Susan, Keith, and Andrea, greatly appreciated your continuing support of our initiative here. And, we look forward to moving the project forward. It's amazing to me that I think council first authorized moving forward with this project on a preliminary basis in May of 2019. We've kept it moving forward, although as you were all aware, things have been challenging in recent months, and this project is no exception. But we have, since I spoke with the borough, I think we have obtained a grant from the Cumberland Area Economic Development Corporation for $65,000. We've submitted grants to the Stewart Foundation, the Stabler Foundation, the Klein Foundation, and the Cumberland County Land Partnership Grant Program. Those are all pending. We've also had preliminary discussions with the Partnership for Better Health, who has provided funding to us in support of our general operations, about also contributing to the project. So hopefully we'll have an update on the funding toward the end of the year. But this agreement will allow us to move forward with more detailed design and engineering work that will be obviously crucial as we move forward with the bidding and construction of the project. If we are not able to obtain all of our funding initially, we've set a target of $250,000 for the project. We will look to phase the project so that we can, begin with at least a beginner level facility and grow it over time as we need to. So our original goal was to break ground, if you will, in next spring. Again, that's contingent upon our obtaining additional funds, but we'll keep you up to date as we have more information. But again, I wanted to thank you, and in particular, Andrea and Susan and Keith, for your support so far.
All right, thank you, sir. I guess we will now go to the pickleball donation action item, Brenda.
Yes. All right, and so my second action item is I move that Borough Council accept an anonymous donation to paint 4 pickleball court lines on the existing tennis court at Latort Park and to purchase 4 rollaway pickleball nets.
I love anonymous donations. I will second that motion. Any discussion?
I do have discussion. I have someone who did send a comment along, and I'm not sure if I don't think that she's on, so I'll try to read it. Let me see. I have like a buggy internet connection. I didn't pull this one up in advance, but basically, she lives in that neighborhood, and her concern was, you know, she understands that pickleball is very popular. But she really wants to ensure that this does not make any sort of slippery slope that would eliminate the tennis courts. She says she sees a lot of use from the pickleballers when they have a big event, but she does see a lot of use throughout, just sort of kind of more like drop-in from the tennis court users. And she especially, you know, she sees that, you know, racket sports in general have more of a maybe a higher class feel, I guess, in some way, but she notes that this is in a mixed income community, and so it's one of the only places that that folks in that neighborhood have access. So she just wanted to say she's not necessarily against pickleballers, but just to ensure that we don't think that folks aren't using the tennis courts. So I just wanted to bring up her comment before we move forward.
Thank you. And I'm sure we'll make sure her comments are spread upon the record.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
oh,
Sorry.
Andrew, I kind of had a question that might go your way anyway. So the removable nets, where are those going to be stored? Are they just going to be stored within that fencing?
Yeah, the removable nets will be stored along the fencing. There'll be 4 of them. They'll be stored at the back, both of the back fences at the courts. And then in the wintertime, we'll have to break them down and store them in one of our facilities. To Brenda's point about you know, hoping not to take away tennis, that is something that we talked extensively at 2 Parks and Recreation Board meetings, and we think that the lining of the tennis courts, there'll be 4 pickleball courts on the tennis courts. We'll still retain tennis, so tennis will still be at Lee Tort. But I can see a point, that was another gentleman's point at the, I think it was the August Parks and Rec Board meeting, that tennis may be getting pushed out. But we, you know, meeting with the Parks and Rec Board, and I've met with Diane Easley and Barb Adams with the Pickleball Association. We feel that this is a compromise for everybody.
Yeah, I knew that that it was discussed at length, but since everyone wasn't at those meetings, and it's been brought up at meetings before, but I wanted to just voice her her concern, and that way we could bring it up one more time as we're having this action item. So
yeah, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah. If I could just add to that, because I do understand that concern from that resident, but I won't speak for all the pickleball folks, but in the few interactions I've had, they've been super nice and accommodating, and I played tennis next to their pickleball games. So I think it seems like a group that would be willing to, you know, work with tennis players if they're waiting, and they play super fast and move through the courts. So I think that's a plus.
All right, hearing no further discussion, I believe we have a motion and a second. Therefore, I will go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it. Motion carries.
Okay, and that completes my report.
Thank you. And last but not least, Public Works.
And we just have one item tonight. We have a staff update about regulatory changes.
Okay. The operation of the water and wastewater treatment facilities and collection distribution facilities are really regulatory driven. And you may have seen a recent discussion. I think there's an article in this Monday's New York Times regarding proposed changes to the copper and lead rule. Thought it was important to call that to your attention. So there is a memorandum that's in your meeting packet that gives a just very brief summary about the lead and copper rule, gives a results of some of the sampling that the borough has done since the rules first went into effect in the early 1990s, showing what our lead and copper concentrations have been at the tap, and they've been well below the action levels. However, we only do 30 samples every 3 years, and 30 samples is less than 0.1% of the total number of customers that we have throughout the system. If the current proposed legislation does go into effect, we will be required to undertake some additional sampling, primarily at schools and at registered daycare facilities, and also develop some plans to identify where our customers potentially could have lead service lines. In doing that, that will impact our operation budgets and also potentially impact our capital improvement plans. So you'll see in the budgets that we're putting together for calendar year 2021, slight increase in operation costs for our water distribution system to try to put some additional funds in there in the event that this legislation does become finalized over the next couple of months, to allow us to then be ahead of the curve and do some additional customer sampling for lead and copper over the next calendar year. Any questions? Deb, I think you're muted.
Damn. Sorry, I was muted and didn't realize it. I thought the information that Mark had provided about the lead was really fascinating, and it was lovely to see that it has been going down over the last 20 years. So that's all good news. So we don't need a motion on this, but it turns out I had printed my agenda out too soon, and I do have a resolution to share with you. And I would ask council to approve a resolution granting staff permission to apply for a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania multimodal grant from the Commonwealth Financing Authority in the amount of $1,597,000 for transportation improvements to the intersections of North Hanover Street with Carlisle Spring Roads and North Hanover Street with Penn Street and Fairground Avenue.
Very worthy project. Ms. Fulham Winston has made a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Landis. Any discussion on this?
We need the money.
That's right, we do. Yeah, that's the discussion. Hearing no further discussion, I'll go ahead and call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. Under new business, I do have one additional finance item. It's a budget item, and I will go ahead and move that council approve the following purchases. The purchase of an installation of a 16-inch replacement water meter from John Gleim. Item number 2, to be installed at the water plant at a price not to exceed $15,630. I so move.
Second.
Okay, Sean, seconded by Sean Schultz. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries. All right, thank you for your indulgence, council. Next up is new business. Is there anyone attending the meeting as an attendee who would like to bring up a matter of borough government at this time? So let us know, and Stephanie will unmute your mic. Going once, going twice. Okay. All right, before we adjourn, I'd like to announce that we will be having a brief executive session at the conclusion of this meeting to discuss a personnel issue. Seeing no further business before this council, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And council, please stick around. We'll do the executive session over Zoom.